Now we discuss Ramesh Singh's books, okay, Indian economy. Now we come to here, revenue deficit. So revenue deficit important things because it. So here we now start if the balance of total revenue received and total revenue expenditure turns out to be negative, it is known as revenue deficit. A new fiscal terminology used since the fiscal 1997 to 1998 in India. This shows that the government revenue budget. See, the next topic is running in losses and the government and is earning less revenue and spending more revenue, incurring a deficit. Revenue expenditure are and of immediate nature. This has to be done, and since they are consumptive, non-productive, they are considered as a kind of expenditure which sums up to a heinous crime in the area of the fiscal policy. The governments fulfill the gap deficit with the money which could have been spent invested in productive areas. A government might have its revenue expenditures less than its revenue receipts, having the budget having a revenue surplus budget. Such fiscal policy is considered good where the government has been able to manage some money out of its revenue budget, which would be spent for the creation of productive assets. Okay, yes. Another thing that should be kept in mind. Okay, so how the government has managed this surplus, and whether the policies which made this happen and judicious enough or not. In the second plan, India emerged as a revenue surplus state, but experts did not appreciate it as it had many bad impacts on the economy. Higher tax rates culminated that in tax evasion, corruption, creation of black money, etc. Revenue deficit may be shown in the quantitative form as much the gross total deficit is in currency terms or in percentage term the GDP for the particular year, shown as percentage of GDP. Usually it is shown as a percentage of the GDP for domestic as well as internal analysis. Effective revenue deficit is a new term introduced in the Union Budget 2011-12. Conventionally, revenue deficit is the difference between the revenue received and revenue expenditure. Okay, so here revenue expenditure includes all the grants which the Union government gives to the state government and the UT, some of which create assets, though these assets are not owned by the government of India and by the concerned state government and the UT. According to the finance minister, Union Budget 2011-12, such revenue expenditures contribute to the growth of the economy and therefore should not be treated as unproductive in nature like the other terms in the revenue expenditure. And on the logic, a new methodology was introduced to capture the effective revenue deficit. So here you can see good assets, Union Budget 11 should not be treated as consumptive and unproductive. Okay, so GOCA. So here the GOCA includes Government of India as grants forward to the states and UT for the implementation of the centrally sponsored programs as the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, accelerated irrigation benefits expenses. So they are shown by the Government of India in its revenue expenditures. They are involved with asset creation and cannot be considered completely unproductive. Okay, which like other items poured in the basket of the revenue expenditures, which the reasons why a new terminology was created which created the term or innovated by the government of India, the government of the time to show some rationale in its high revenue deficit by bringing the logic that all of it were not like a typical revenue expenditure which are considered consumptive in nature, and some of it were used to create its capital assets also, though they cannot be shown in the capital heads of expenditures, though the new government at center does not give it the same significance to the term it has been releasing it related to it. So here Union budget 2017-18 reduced effective revenue deficit 0.7%, and in 2017-18 came to 0.2%. In 2018-19 it was estimated to be the 1.2% in 2016-17, while the revenue deficit. So while the revenue deficits for 2017 and 2018-19 have been set 1.9% and 1.4% by the budget. So revenue budget. Now we discuss the revenue budget, the part of the budget which deals with the income and expenditure of the revenue by the government. This represents the annual financial statements of the total revenue receipts, and the total revenue expenditure. If the balance emerges to the positive, it is the revenue surplus budget, and it comes out to be negative, it is revenue deficit budget. Capital budget, the part of the budget which deals with the receipts and expenditure of the capital by the government. This shows the means by which the capital is managed, and there is where capital is spent. Where capital is spent. The capital receipts all non-revenue receipts of a government are known as the capital receipts. Such as revenue are the investment purposes and supposed to be spent on planning development of the government, but the receipts might need their diversion to meet their other needs, to take care of the rising revenue expenditure of a government, and the case had been with India. The capital receipts in India include the following capital kind of accruals of the government. Loan recovery. This is the one source of the capital receipts. This is the money the government had lent out in the past in India, so UT, PSU, etc., and abroad. Their capital comes back to the government, where when the borrowers repay them as capital receipt, the interest of which comes to the government on such loans are part of the revenue receipts. Borrowing by the government, this includes the long-term raised by the government into the country. There is internal borrowing as outside the country. External borrowing. Internal borrowings might include the borrowings from the RBI, Indian banks, financial institutions, etc. Similarly, external borrowings might include the loans from the World Bank, IMF, and foreign banks, foreign government, foreign financial institutions, and other received by the government. This includes many long-term capital accruals to the government through the Provident Fund and postal deposits, various small savings schemes, and government bonds sold to the public. That is Indra Vikas Patra. So here Kisan Vikas Patra and market stabilization bond, etc. Such receipts are nothing but a kind of loan on which the government needs to pay interest on their maturities, but they play a role in capital raising process by the government. So here capital expenditure, all the areas of which get capital from the government are the part of the capital expenditure. It includes so many Here's in India, loans distribution by the government. The loans forwarded by the government might be internal. There is the states into PSU. FI. So the external, there is the foreign countries. Okay, external, there is the foreign countries. Okay, foreign banks, purchase of foreign banks. Foreign banks, foreign bonds, loans to IMF and World Bank, etc. The loan repayment by the government. Again, loan repayment might loan payment might be internal as well as external. This consists of only the capital part of the loan prepayment as the element of interest of loans shown as a part of the revenue expenditure. Plan expenditure of the government. This consists of all expenditures incurred by the government to finance the planned development of India as well as the central government financial support to the states for their planned requirements. Capital expenditure on defense by the government. This consists all kinds of capital expenses to maintain the defense forces, the equipment purchased for them, as well as the modernization expenditures. Okay, it should be kept in mind that defense is a non-planned expenditures, okay, which has capital as well as the revenue expenditure and in its maintenance. Okay, the revenue parts of expenditure is defense is counted in the revenue expenditures by the government. General services. These are also need huge capital expenditure by the government. The railways, postal development, the postal department, water power supply, education, rural extension, etc. Other liabilities of the government. Basically, this includes all the repayment liabilities of the government on the items of the other receipt. The level of liabilities depends on the factors as to how much such receipts were made by the government in the past. The amounts of payment liabilities in the year also depends on the factors as to which year in the past the government had other receipts and for what duration of maturity periods. As for example, the PF liabilities were not an item of such liabilities for almost first 3 decades after the independence, but when the government employee started retiring, it went to on increasing future India, especially 1960 and 70 saw expansion of the PSU and excessive employment generation in them, devoid of the logic of labor requirement. You see the PF liabilities expanding extensively throughout the 1990s. The government had been under pressure to manage this segment either by cutting interest on PF or at present trying to make it a matter market economy. Same things happened with the element of the pension, and we have been able to devise market mechanism took place on the arrival of a pension regulatory authority of the area. So next we discuss capital deficit next time. Thank you, friends.